Welcome back, Aaron.
Hey, Chris. Good to see you.
Hey, Aaron. It's good to see you too.
I like how we pretend we didn't just spend 15 minutes shooting the shit. And now we're like,
6 minutes.
hey, just pop it on.
6 minutes. And I like, for those that can't see, Aaron's got the Northern Lights behind him on his background.
Yes.
We're going to talk about the Vortex of Vision today. The Vortex of Vision.
Good. And I think this is cool because I have no idea what you're talking about.
Big reveal.
Big reveal.
And we'll see how you were.
Vision. It's good. It's got a great alliteration. It sounds cool. I like Vortex. I'm a big, Esther Hicks fan, and Vortex is big with them. And Vision is something I've been playing with. So I would really.
Okay, good. So let me set it up for us then. My experience of vision in my own life till my 40s, I'm 46 now. Any vision I had in business was about income and lifestyle. And I think as a society, most of our vision, if I said, what's your vision? Most people's answer would be something around income, how much money they want to make, how much they want in their retirement account, or the lifestyle they want to have. I want to work 4 hours. I want to have houses in all the places, whatever. So that is, I think, the current norm for people in business. If I said, what's your vision? Or something that serves that, right? They might say, my vision is to have, sell 100 houses. But why do you want to sell 100 houses? Because I want income and lifestyle. So you could throw success in there too. Success is a function of lifestyle or status.
All right. I'm going to just stop you for a second. Yep. Can I interrupt as you go? How do you want it?
Okay. That's how we roll.
Okay, fine. I know. I can't believe I'm asking if I can interrupt you. It's like we've never done this before. All right. Do you think that's the case? Do you think that is, because I don't hear vision that way, but that could just be because I spent 30 years being trained to insight futures and possibilities and creating something from nothing, and hear it on a much larger context than, but I do. So it's funny, Chris, because I was just writing the introduction to the book I'm writing, where we interviewed successful agents, and the sort of the takeaway is the power of possibility, and I'm using possibility the way you're using vision. So same. And I write in there that it's not goals, because the goals are numerical. Yeah, goals tend to be what you're talking about. But I think what you're saying now is, most people relate to vision and have vision and goals be synonymous, goals in that way. That's
I think there's a collapse. I think there's two thoughts coming. One is if a lot of people have vision boards, and on those vision boards are things like cars and houses. And
I'm looking at 2 of my vision boards, and that's exactly what's on them. Planes and boats. And
income and lifestyle.
And then there's some sort of meditation and vibey stuff.
So that's about you. Meditation's about you. That's my point. My point is, most people's vision is about them.
Yes, good.
It's totally about you.
The vision board thing is nailed it completely for me. That's great. Good. Okay, keep going. I totally get how I use vision. Yep.
And if I said to, it was true for me. If I said to you, Aaron, like, what is your vision? Tell me your vision. What would you say?
Well, it's interesting. I would say something like, I would probably say something like, my vision is that people in life have the experience of agency in their life. I would talk about it like I talk about my calling. Yeah. But I don't have that on my vision boards.
Yeah.
So, I would talk about it globally. Yeah. But my muscle memory, my actual on the courtness of it. Yeah. Is personal. Yeah. It's a real dichotomy, a real,
so that's the other way.
Problem, but yeah.
Well, that's the other way this can show up then, is those who are heart-centered, who have a heart for others, who typically look in the world of possibility, who see that the world could be better. vision. So they're still going to have a vision board or something, goals about my life and lifestyle, but their vision for anything beyond themselves lives in a universal. It lives in a wispy, overarching agency for humanity. And we're like, well, but it's not a vision. It's a possibility. It's an idea. It's not like, when I think of vision, to me, there are things you can see, literally vision, things I can see in my mind's eye, or things I want to create, not a concept I want to create, but things I want to create for others in the world.
That's dope. I'm going to have to re-listen to this, because that is dope. That is great. I don't.
Yeah. And it's a very imaginative exercise. It's a very creative, you get to say whatever it is. Like if you were going to build a vision board for agency for other people, and you allowed yourself, you gave yourself permission to not to look at see the things. What are the things? And you don't have to, the reason we kill this off is because we often go to, I don't know how I'm going to do it. So we kill it off at how, and we never let our imagination get to the vision. So we live in universals and cliches. We don't ever actually live in the tangibility of a vision.
It's great, Chris. There's a lot there, like to de-wispify. I'm gonna
yeah, I like that. De-wispify.
Yeah, because it all lives in a wispiness. I like that. It really does. And it's funny, like I don't have any problem looking at my vision board, I don't have any problem. There's wispy stuff on there, and then there's, a Cessna,
yeah.
Not wispy. And it would take creativity for me to get what I talk about, my calling, my vision in that context, into something concrete, like in my mind's eye, to be able to see it. I haven't done that work. And I haven't done that. Part of the knee jerk there isn't, I don't know how, so much as I don't want to limit it. Like the knee jerk around niching down people have, I don't want to limit it. But that's the only thing that's really preventing, is I haven't taken the time to do the thinking about what it actually would look like to have agency, people experience agency in life, and then to create. Okay, good. So that's keep going. That's when you talk about vision, that's what you mean.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. And you're contrasting that to any of the other possible definitions, which is everything we just sort of went through. Is that correct?
Yep.
All right. Exactly. I'm tracking.
Yeah. So what happens then is, and I think oftentimes it's a dead end for people, or a karmic loop, because we get inspired at the mountaintop and we're like, let's have love for everyone. And then we get in the trenches of work and chasing our current vision on our vision boards that are about me. And it becomes very hard. Well, there's no framework for how to think about this. Oh, maybe not no framework, but it's not a common muscle memory to think through a process of how to access the thing that's in your soul to do. So maybe that we can spend some time here then going through the four, what I would call circles of the vortex of vision. A vortex is like a funnel, right? And if you looked down on it, you'd see four concentric circles, an outer circle, another circle, and a smaller circle, and they would all be inside each other. And we've had this conversation before, but this is a little bit different context. So the first outer circle of all of the vision is the essence of your vision. The essence of the vision would be agency for all, like that when people, and that's the wispy part. Yeah. And it needs to be wispy. Like if you jump to something tangible, you don't get to the essence of what you're trying to do. The essence is, another way to say that would be, the essence is the breath of life of everything you would do about your vision. It's the thing that gives all the things you would do the life.
Okay.
And without that essence, it would just be another to-do list, another goal, another target. So the prompt I give, and the prompt that we would give in our workshop, I think, is when blank happens, the world will change.
Right.
So you said, well, when people experience agency,
Yeah.
the world will change.
Yeah.
That holds the essence of your vision. And so that's the first part. Any questions on that? It's pretty straightforward.
No. We have talked about this before, but now I get it inside that what you're building now. But yeah, so yeah, I totally get that. That's that. Well, one thing that shows up for me inside that, it's not so much a question.
Yeah.
But it's maybe just it's got to, I think I know the answer, I mean, as I'm saying it, but when X happens, the world will change is an inherent, you're creating that as the context for a vision is to make a dent in the universe, is to have something different show up than what is there. I think it's, now that I'm saying it out loud, of course, that would be, I mean, you wouldn't have a vision to have everything stay exactly as it is. That's not really
right.
You don't need a vision to have
right.
exactly as they are. They already are as they are. Your vision is, about creating something that is not. It's about really, that's an infinite game. That's the definition of a game, right? Is something that isn't is more important than something that is. So the vision is, just think it's worth outlining why it's created that way. Versus just accepting. I don't know. For me, I just needed to think through it. So
did you?
I'm at the source.
Come to a conclusion on that?
Yeah, I think it's you're creating, and you want to use Simon Sinek's words. You're creating an infinite game. You're talking about it the way Werner Erhard would talk about it. Is that something that's not is more important than something that is, right? And that's a game, right? You created something out there. You want to talk about it like. Jeff and Richard are in the autonomy course that I'm doing is, it's not about, it's about the obstacles, right? That any game is really about the create, like a marathon isn't about 26 miles, because if it was about getting to 26 miles, you'd get in a car. It's about the obstacles it takes to do it. It's about the running. It's about the thing. Right. So the vision, the created world that isn't yet. So now I'm going to throw myself into creating that and get developed in doing that. That's the development, is the obstacles that does not yet exist. So pick any of those various interpretations and you got why the vision is when X happens, the world will change as a useful construct.
Yeah, really good. Jim Rohn used to say, we set goals, and now I'm going to use the word goals, I'm going to interchange goals in this quote with vision, but we set goals because they entice us to become the people it takes to achieve them.
Yes, good. Right.
So we have the essence of a vision about something that's not something big out in the future. That's a legacy piece that would outlive our lives.
Right.
Because it entices us to become the people it would take to achieve it. Right. We don't drive 26 miles in a marathon. We run it. Why? Because it's the training and the process of getting ready to do it and who I became in the process of preparing for the marathon. That is the work.
Yeah.
And the gift. And I can say in my own experience, I just felt like in my days before I got this essence piece and allowed for it, all the goals about income and lifestyle just I got bored. None of it was actually compelling enough for me to be like, I'd give my life for that.
And that's where this came. That's how you got into this, was like, you were just, okay.
I wanted, and not everybody, I can embrace that. Not everybody thinks that big. I don't think as big as Elon Musk. I don't think about colonizing Mars. That's not interesting to me. I don't want to do that.
I don't know that you're thinking any less big than that, but okay. But
okay, that's fair.
But the point is, it's very much the nature of our particular show, and what we're doing is this is for beyond the transaction. You could, it's perfect.
It's a good point. I appreciate that pushback, because like if every one of us is a soul, and souls are expansive, then maybe we all have access to thinking at this level, having vision at this level. I think we maybe sometimes put self-constraints on, well, I don't think that big, but it's not that you couldn't.
I just don't know how, whatever it is that you're creating as your vision is inherently smaller than colonizing Mars. I mean, maybe
Right.
that's technically something that's beyond your capabilities of thinking about the technical aspects of what it would take to colonize Mars.
Sure.
But, I can
Right.
certainly say for myself, all people experiencing agency is no smaller of a vision than colonizing Mars.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I love that. That's great. That's great. It points to some of the things we do about our comparison, and comparison can sometimes kill off vision too.
Yeah.
So
Good.
that's great.
All
Okay,
right.
so once we have a vision, the essence of what we want to, how we would want to bring change to the world, I have found it helpful to quantify it in a way that helps me build a plan for that. So example, what I call that is a tipping point. So what out in the future, like way out in the future, is a representation of all people having agency, where that once that tipping point is reached, it takes on a life of its own. There's a momentum that ripples through generations. So for me, I found it in people, 1 million members of groundswell communities having these kinds of conscious conversations in business would ripple for generations. Do I know that? No, I said that. It's a declaration. I'm declaring that, and it's the game I'm playing. But if you can quantify it, how many people or something for Elon Musk, I think his essence was, I want to preserve the human species in case we nuke each other and torch the earth, right? Like, so how am I going to do that? What would be the thing that would hold and ripple? Well, if we could put something on a colony on Mars, then there would be hope. So that became a tipping point where if all the things that were required to make that colonization happen were in place and it happened, then it would continue on.
Okay.
So I've been working on the language around this, like how to help people think about quantifying, because you don't just pick a number. That has who cares? But you have to have some logic in your head for like, what is the thing that we could build, create, do, that once it's done, it would take on its own momentum. It would create a tipping point.
And so for you,
so for me, it's 1,000 members. 1 million members, 1,000 communities with 1,000 members.
So it's really this house, this community.
Yep.
And then the number is 1 million.
Because I felt like 1 million, it's just a number, but it's not just a number to me. To me, it represents an energetic shift.
Right.
When people are really in this kind of a conversation and walking each other home, not just doing a mastermind for a quarter or doing a 6-week program, but are literally like every week meeting together and having conversations that challenge and expand their mind.
Right.
For their vision, that would change the world. So you don't have to come up with an answer now. I mean, this is really.
No, I got it.
But
I got it. Good.
But
Yeah. Good.
I can pick. I just love the Elon example. Not that he's gone on record to say that that's what he's doing, but it really works for me as a process to think. He sat there and thought, we're going to kill each other, and so we should have some way that we could extend our species. And I couldn't. What could we do? We could build a space station, but we couldn't fit a lot of people on a space station. So that was not going to be a tipping point. We could put people on Venus. No, we probably couldn't do that. We can't call it, I can't go further out in the solar system. So I imagine there were a lot of like iterations, like maybe this, maybe that, not this, not that, until there was some semblance of maybe this could work. And he probably sat with it for a bit. It probably wasn't like maybe it was a shower moment, like Eureka, I got it. We're going to colonize Mars. But it's okay to be with the uncertainty of what it is until you can find something that you feel ownership of. And I think that's another place that gets us off of vision is if we don't have the immediate answer, we're like, well, I don't know. And then we stop the inquiry.
Right.
And that's why we stay in the wispiness of things, because we don't know how to bring something so big down to earth and quantify
Well, I
it.
think it's interesting that for you, 1 million seems down to earth. I mean, it is. I mean, it's grounded in something at any rate, whether or not I mean, it's still as close to infinite as you can get without it being infinite.
Yeah.
But regardless of the number, because the number really, I mean, on one hand, Chris, the number 1 million might as well be infinite. It's not, there's no, I don't know that there's in the world of committed listening, I don't know that you could find someone who could committedly listen to 1 million as the goal. So it's not a goal like that.
It's not a goal. Absolutely.
So I'm sorting that out for myself, right? It's not a goal.
It's a tipping point. It's not a goal.
Right. It's a placeholder.
The representation.
A representation. But the important part, in my listening of this, is the container, is the people participating in the conversations. And then you've got you've then done the work and are doing the work to keep expanding this container, which is the vision of Vortex thing that you're rolling out. And the work that we're doing here is in fact inside of that for you. Well, for me, it's inside something else. And I haven't articulated particularly what that something else is. And, I think we've talked about this in previous episodes, actually. 1 million is, in my view, just my take on it is 1 million is as close to infinite as you can get without saying infinite.
The difference for me is that, and I think this is an important distinction, because if you have something that, to me, it doesn't feel impossible. Infinite feels impossible. That just,
good. That's right.
Doesn't feel impossible. How many
downloads?
Precedent.
That's right. How many downloads of Angry Birds were there?
I mean, there are a million. When I was in real estate, there were over 1 million NAR members, NAR due paying members, $500 a year of real estate agents who were members of National Association of Realtors. Over 1 million.
Perfect. Great.
So to me, there was precedent of.
That's excellent, Chris. No, that really did completely. That's what I said just a moment ago really is sort of the knee-jerk defense of keeping it wispy. To keep it wispy, not of keeping. Like that's how I relate to it. Like, oh, fuck it. It's going to be, might as well be infinite. But no, that's right. There are 1 million NAR members. There are 1 million NAR members. It's more than that actually now.
And NAR has been around 100 plus 120 years. So I'm okay. I think this is another part that's important, is like when creating an infinite game.
Yeah, right. It doesn't matter when it happens.
I don't care. It doesn't have to happen in my lifetime. I'm not playing for 1 million in my lifetime. I'm trying to pinpoint the tipping point for humanity. And then in the rest of my lifetime, I'm going to go down the road as best I can to bring all the pieces that are needed in order for that to fulfill itself. But that my task, I'm jumping to the end here, but my task becomes to play the game called, how do I get everything set up in such a way that this can continue until it reaches that number?
Yeah. I got it. All right, good. So there's the million, and then there's the house that you're inviting 1 million people into, and the way that they're going to participate.
That's right.
Right. Which needs to get articulated to have actually any shot of a vision being fulfilled. Totally with you. Completely.
And I thought, it couldn't be 1 million subscribers to a YouTube channel. It couldn't be, because that doesn't last. That's not that it. To me, it was really like it needed to be something sustainable, like that people would continue to these conversations and this way of being together. And I was like, community, conversation, leadership, the best container for all of that was, to me, community. You listening to this could have your own container for however you want to do it. But for me, I thought, if people who are wired similarly in similar verticals got together, like our repurposed community of agents who are like, we want to bring social change to our communities. How do we use our business to do that? When we're all 1,000 of us in real estate having this conversation together, there's camaraderie, there's distinction, there's comparing notes, there's resource. all of a sudden now there's momentum.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it was 1 million members of groundswell communities, because that was the container that made the most sense for me.
Good. All right.
So, okay. So that's the tipping point. And so we have essence, and then we've got tipping point, which kind of brings it down into something plannable, mappable. And so the third circle then inward is a map. How do we map our way? Just like if I was going to go from Spokane to Seattle, I would go like, here are my checkpoints from here to Seattle. Like, what's the map?
Mm-hmm.
So I started to think, how do I get to 1 million? How would I do that? And to your point, like, I was like, 10,000 communities with 100 members, 100 members in a group feels doable, but 10,000 communities did not feel doable. I was like, I can't get there that way.
Mm-hmm.
I went the other direction in math. I'm like, well, what if I had 100 communities? That feels doable, but each community had 10,000 people. And I'm like, that isn't community. That's too big. That doesn't feel intimate enough. So this is just simply math for me, but I was like, okay, and much like you look at a map and you'd be like, I could go this way, or I could go this way, or I could go this way. I'm just picking your route. I picked my route and I thought, well, 1,000 communities with 1,000 members, that feels in the realm of possible. That feels doable. I could do that. So that became how I mapped my way to 1 million. How am I going to get to 1 million members? 1,000 communities with 1,000 members in each community. So that's the third circle, is in the vortex of vision, is the map. How do you map your way? If I bring it back to the Elon example, he's like, okay, colonize Mars is a tipping point. Well, what am I going to need? What resources, strategy? What am I going to need to do that? Well, I'll probably need some solar powered things. So we have Tesla shingles and Tesla power walls. He's like, well, we're probably going to need the surface of Mars is not very inhabitable. So we need to drill holes. So he's got the boring company, which drills big ass tunnels, right? He also was like, I'm going to need a way to get there. So SpaceX, he's got SpaceX. He's got the Tesla truck, which I'm pretty positive was not made for Earth. It's the ugliest thing I've ever seen. But anyway, and then and he's like, well, we'll need a way to communicate. So he bought Twitter. And then he's like, well, we're going to need some sort of way for internet access. So he's got his satellite internet. I mean, he hasn't gone on record to say this is all the plan, but it's obvious to me. I'm like, he's got all the resources and he keeps gathering them and building them and funding. They're all viable businesses on their own. But to me, these are all parts that go into his map for how to pull off the tipping point. So, side note, what's interesting about that is when you have a big vision like this and you make decisions, strategic decisions, like to buy Twitter, and everybody throws shade at you because they think it's a really stupid investment, but you're playing a different game, all of a sudden it doesn't matter. You don't care. I think so many people are afraid to say stuff to the world because they don't know what their vision is. And so we're like, oh, people are throwing shade at me. I'm so embarrassed that I made that decision. But when you know what the vision is, you just go collect the resources and off you go. So that's the map.
Great.
Well, you say stuff because I've been talking and I don't want
okay,
you to
good.
I
No,
don't
I
lose you.
get it. So, just one thing is I really have a whole series of personal opinions about Elon Musk that get in my way of the metaphor.
It's fine, I'm sure.
Okay. I can detach myself from my opinion, but I notice I just keep detaching myself from my opinion.
Good.
But yeah, no, that I can hear the logic. I'm without my having the tipping point.
Yeah.
It makes it everything now is theoretical.
Right.
I mean, my listening, like, yeah, I can get it theoretically. And it's I'm interested now in the is it a course, the community, the vision of Vortex community? What are we calling it?
That's a series I'm doing in my groundswell community
okay, great.
For my community partners.
Great. The Vortex of Vision. Like I'm in this conversation, like that's what we're having now is the fundamental conversation of that
Yes,
community.
that's
Okay.
what I'm holding space for. And then as a group, we're
Good.
exploring it, inquiring about it.
And I'd be interested because my mind is now hooked around your example.
Yep.
And I'm having difficulty breaking free from what it would look like to have other expressions of it.
Yeah.
Because yours is a really, I'm in it right now. I'm like in your example. I'm a piece of your example. I'm a piece of your vision. And frankly, everyone listening to the podcast and in our repurposed community is part of that vision. I mean, we're in your vortex. So I'm grappling with for myself, what would my tipping point look like free from the example of yours? Like, what would it look like for me? And then mapping it becomes an exercise.
Yeah.
But without the tipping point,
right.
It doesn't, it's
That's
just
right.
conceptual. So
that's right.
So I'm listening, like,
Yeah.
I get where I would go, but then I would,
Yeah.
still sort of
Yep.
rotating on what my tipping point would look like.
Yeah. I think the point of these kind of conversations and for that matter, our workshop, anybody trying to moving through the thought spaces of what's my vision. It's not like you just like whip out the worksheet and it's done. Like
Right.
It really does take some ownership. You have to it's like in math, you got to come to your own conclusion and then show your work. How did you get to your answer? Like, don't just put a number on the page, show me
Right.
how you got to your answer. Because without ownership of it, then you won't have the future pull that your vision would provide for you. You won't die on that hill. You won't go the distance for it because it doesn't actually mean anything to you. You were
Right.
just doing an exercise.
Right. Good. Okay, good.
So the last piece, then, once you
what's
have a
last one?
map, yeah, right. Once you have the map of like, for me, 1,000 communities with 1,000 members is like the plan. What's the plan for how to do that? Like, so, and that takes time, but you got to start with what you have. So you just take the next right step for the plan of it. I realized, okay, well, I need one community. I need to build the first community. So a year and a half ago, I created Groundswell University. I invited 20 people, 13 said yes. And we've been meeting for a year and a half and been seeing what works and doesn't work and noticing my thoughts about where I feel like it's missing stuff and thoughts about where I really feel charged by what it's doing. And you just work your prototypes through. And then you and I had a conversation only last winter, and then started our podcasting last June, and with this community in mind. And then a light worker community happened we started a conversation in August, and I started, okay, so now I'm working out the prototype of how do I get in partnership with people? What does that feel like? How do I do it in a way that feels good to me? So how do I preserve the quality and the curated community? So it's not just anybody can buy and come in and then becomes a shit show. And now it's,
Right.
Not serving its purpose to change humanity because we're having stupid conversations instead of evolved conversations. Like, so these are the things that there's a plan for it. And as I keep going down the road, I'm like, I can see where Groundswell can resource the communities. Like as the communities grow and the revenue grows for Groundswell, there are now annual convention or an annual event, guest speakers. Like there's all kinds of stuff now that
you can see now that you're down the road that you couldn't see.
And I can plan for
it. Yeah, right. The plan doesn't have to be
completed.
Complete, right.
Yeah, right.
It's just the next step. What's the next step?
Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, I for sure where I'm, and left looking is, okay, well, what does that tipping point look like for people being empowered to have agency in their life? What would it, either how many people, and who are they and where are they, and Um,
Yeah.
what are they doing
Mhm.
that, I could say, yeah, that's a tipping point for humanity, that things have changed, that,
Yeah.
that's a new reality, right? Um,
And that's a really fun place to explore. Like, I
yeah,
think don't shortchange, I'm not saying this just to you, but um, don't shortchange the exploration of all the different variables that could make that change, that people have agency. Like you might say, well, maybe it's not, and I'm just going to use my numbers here, but maybe it's not 1 million people. Maybe it's 10,000 leaders in organizations that are very, like, I know I have a heart for victims of domestic violence. I know I have a heart for, and you start going through the very specific verticals or points of impact that you have a heart for, and you go, okay, well, what would it look like to have, what would that world look like? And you just start to explore what would, maybe you're like, developmental age of kids, like kids are such an underserved, for a conscious conversation, kids kind of get thrown into the adult world of things and the system of things. And I think there's a missing conversation in the developmental years of kids. And so maybe your heart goes that direction. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up, but
right.
that's where you start to think like agency. Where is that? Wow. What are the pieces of agency? I don't know. What is it? What does that even mean to me?
Right. Well, so I mean, part of where this show and what we're doing here fits inside my vortex
Yep.
of vision, right? Like what
Yep.
expression this is have realtors develop that sense of agency, and to have them be the leaders of that conversation in their communities.
Mm.
Like that's what this is. So,
Yep.
um,
Right.
but I don't think the tipping point is 1 million realtors. Although, I mean, that you just said it, there's one, I mean, I think there's 1.6 million realtors in this country right now.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
And, I mean, on one hand, it seems a little bit narrow of a scope, but given how, is the word ubiquitous? Does that mean all over the place?
I think so.
Ubiquitous?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. Given how endemic and ubiquitous real estate agents are, and the premise of of that we started with, you and I started with, that started this show, was like the
Mhm.
special place inside the lives of our clients that we hold, that we're not generally responsible for holding, but if we were, we could then leverage that community inside what matters to us. So it, on one hand, I'm going to say it this way, it feels silly for me to say when 1 million real estate agents are having this conversation, are leaders in their community, the world will change.
Yeah.
Seems like, what the fuck does that even, like, are you kidding? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, on one hand, it feels a little bit like trying to, force the foot into the glass slipper. Like, okay,
Yeah.
this happens, when all you have is when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yeah.
It
Right.
feels a little bit like that.
Uh-huh.
At the same time, the math checks out. I mean, there's just in this country, there's over 1 million. Forget about what there are worldwide. And they really are, it's a major, they have a very special role in the
Yeah.
lives of the people for whom they serve.
Yeah.
There really is a space there that is underutilized and unexamined. So maybe the silliness is just in a little bit of embarrassment that I haven't done anything really about it. So I haven't resolved for myself that that dichotomy, that variance. But
this
Certainly
is,
the math checks out. I mean, those people are
yeah.
there.
And if you looked at the
Embedded.
turnover rate of agents, how many agents get out of the business? It's just because there's a million now, it's like the revolving door. What if it's 78% like don't make it for
87.
2 years?
Yeah, 87 within 5.
So if you look at that, like 800,000 are turning over every 5 years, roughly based on that. So then you start looking at that and you go, well, maybe it's not so much that, I mean, this is how my mind works. So I start to go, well, what if it was new agents? So that when they came in, the beginning of their adventure in real estate was that of agency. And even if they didn't stick around in real estate, who they became as agents of agency in the world, in their community, served them to go further. And so we could still walk with each other in our agency, even if they weren't an agent anymore.
Right.
And maybe those people have preferred partners like lenders and loan inspectors and insurance agents that also have this. And now, there's power. And so what if it wasn't all agents? What if it was agents, lenders, and insurance? Now you've divided that number in thirds.
Right. And financial planners.
So now I divided in fours. So, and this isn't the game of math I play in my head to go, how do I get my head around this not being a joke or some thing that I'm just throwing a number at? I'm like, how would this actually be possible for me?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, these people, my people,
yep,
are in fact embedded. We're, like reporters get embedded with troops.
Yeah.
I feel like we're embedded. I feel like, those alien movies where the aliens are amongst us.
Yeah.
They're embedded.
Right.
What is that?
Men in Black.
Men in Black, or the pub one in England.
I don't know if I saw that one.
The last. Oh, it's funny. It's anyway. I can't think of it, making me crazy. But like embedded, if we turn them on, if those people got turned on, right, unleashed, those people that are already embedded in the communities and who they were in fact, agents of change in their communities for what their particular communities spoke, because everyone's got a different, community. Everyone's got a different way of speaking, a different voice, a different conversation, a different community that they speak to. And I don't, whatever it is, but if people that really would then they then had agency to fulfill that. And they're giving people permission and empowering people that their community that really could. I mean, it's a funny way to go about creating change. It seems that's the part about it. Like, really, you're going to use real estate agents to create change, except for, the metaphor that just in talking about it is, when McDonald's realized they weren't in the hamburger business, but were in the real estate business.
Yeah.
They've got the corners. They own that real estate. That's their business. We own that real estate agents own that real estate. We own that mind share. We own that place in the communities. We already exist in there. And I think it would change the conversation for sure if it was new agents knew what they were getting into, wasn't slinging 3 houses a month.
Right.
But look, you're going to do this, and where you're going to start is who are you speaking to and who are you speaking for?
Yep. So good. Wow.
Okay. Well, that then becomes a tipping point kind of conversation.
Yeah.
Like a million new agents.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be new agents, but from the beginning, right? And then the mapping part of it really is then sort of like, okay, well, get them when they're young.
Yeah.
If you started with how many new people are there, and within the first 5 years, you empowered them. It's funny because this morning I was doing some work inside my app, and looking at niche
Mm.
conversations, you know, like empowering people to pick their niche, and your work on Leads You Love came up and
Yeah.
in my mind. And that's strikes me as a parallel for this conversation. Somewhere there's a parallel or tangential relationship between picking your niche and picking who you're speaking to and what
Yeah.
you're standing for.
Absolutely.
Kind of world that I haven't explored yet. So
yeah.
Yeah,
Because you'll start to figure out, like, I think it's important to
I'm in
figure
a
out
vortex. Look at me.
who this is for.
Yeah.
You know, like not every agent's going to want to participate in this conversation. So you start to go, okay, well, maybe it's a million, but it's a million blank. It's a million who's. It's a million people
Right.
who people like us think like this. People like us do things like this.
Well, that is really sort of then this podcast. I mean, that's really what we've been doing here this whole time. We just haven't had that name on it or that clarity about the articulation of the vision.
Yeah.
Right. But that then becomes what that completely fits inside what we created for this.
Yeah.
We haven't articulated it that way yet.
Right.
Which is good. And I think we can sort of wrap this inside of, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. I mean, you look at it's about who you become in figuring it out. It's can you hang in there in the uncertainty of not knowing and press through until something comes out the other end that's useful.
Yeah.
And that you can examine and use that to take to the next step. Like, you know, versus, oh shit, I can't think of the tipping point. Fuck it. I'm just going to sling 6 more houses.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No.
So good. Wow. Well, if you're listening to this and you're like, wow, look, these are the kind of conversations that I think the premise of our community is that each of us have a difference we want to make, a vision that we want to clarify. And once clarified, want to walk down the path of living that out in this lifetime. And it's better to do that together than to do it alone. So if you are an agent who has a vision for making the world a better place and you don't want to do that on your own and you want to compare notes with others doing the same thing, then you can go to repurpose.group/invite and see a video of Aaron and I there explaining the community and an application. So we'd love to learn more about you. Thanks, Aaron. Peace.
Peace.